Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching Today I Found Out, and in the video today we're looking at whether you can really avoid an airline baggage fee by simply wearing all of your clothes. Just before we get started, I do want to say that if you're looking for another channel to check out, please do check out Picture the Recipe. This isn't a sponsor spot or anything. They are just friends of the channel, and they make incredibly easy to follow cooking tutorials that show you how to make delicious food with easy to follow steps. So you will find a link to them in the description below. Please go over, check them out, and do not forget to subscribe. Alright, let's get into it. So it's a trope that has appeared in dozens of movies and countless TV shows, but can you actually circumvent an airline's baggage fee by just turning up at the airport wearing all of your clothes? Now, the first thing we should point out is that there are a handful of documented cases of people doing just this. Consider the story of James McElvar, a member of the Scottish boy band called Rewind. He successfully managed to board a plane wearing 4 jumpers, 6 t-shirts, 3 pairs of jeans, 2 pairs of jogging bottoms, 2 jackets, and 2 hats. Now, according to the BBC, McElvar was so annoyed at learning that his chosen airline wouldn't let him take 2 pieces of hand luggage onto the plane without paying extra that he decided to simply wear all of the clothes in one of his bags in order to get around the problem. While details on exactly what happened to McElvar prior to boarding the plane are sparse, he was apparently able to make it through security without any incident. Once on the plane, he decided to simply take all of the extra clothes off and put the items on the seat next to him, which was empty. However, he was told that he didn't have to wait to do that, as he needed to sit down and buckle in for takeoff. This didn't work out for him. I knew something was wrong early on as I couldn't breathe properly. I thought I was having a heart attack. Unable to take the heat, it was July at the time, he unbuckled and took off the extra clothing while the plane was taking off. But the damage, unfortunately, was already done. McElvar became violently ill and began throwing up. A little later, he passed out, then briefly regained consciousness before passing out a second time. According to ambulance personnel who attended to McElvar shortly after his plane landed, he was lucky to be alive. Despite the trouble it caused him, including spending a few days at the hospital, McElvar was able to skirt paying an additional baggage fee by wearing all of his clothes, reportedly saving him a grand total of £45, which is about $70. If cost savings are your goal, though, we wouldn't recommend this for our American viewers, though, because the British National Health Service, well, it's not going to cover your medical bills. Other documented instances of people getting away with this turned out much better for them, such as the case of a Chinese man who, after arriving at the Hangzhou Baiyun International Airport, was told his luggage was too heavy and he needed to pay extra. Instead, he simply put on 60 shirts. For reference, the world record for most shirts worn at once is currently in the mid-200s, and that changes frequently. He also wore 9 pairs of jeans. After this, he reportedly looked like a sumo wrestler. While he did have a bit of trouble getting through security, he was given a full body search after the metal detector went off. He was allowed to board the plane in the end. Then there's the case of 2 unnamed individuals traveling from Singapore to Sydney who decided to skirt the $130, that's £72 fee, owing to their overweight luggage by simply lightening their luggage via putting on as many clothes as they could. So considering these cases, it would appear that at least a few airlines out there allow this sort of thing, even to the extreme. But what about in the general case? Well, interestingly, it seems that it's totally fine. You see, despite our sincerest efforts, we could not find a single instance of an airline explicitly restricting the number of layers of clothing a person can wear on their planes. The closest many come is in reserving the right to refuse a passenger boarding if said passenger is wearing something obscene. In the context of these rules, they are referring to lewd or otherwise potentially offensive clothing. However, one of the accepted definitions of obscene is so large an amount or size as to be shocking or unfair. So we guess if a particular boarding agent wanted to be a stickler here, they technically have an out on this one. Among other technicality-type rules that might see you turned away, most airlines also have a hygiene rule that could potentially be applied, given that wearing absurd amounts of clothing for any length of time will see you become a sweaty mess. Beyond such technicalities, as mentioned, no airline we could find has any specific rules against this layering practice, nor could we find an instance of someone being turned away for doing this. So at this point, you might be wondering about other size restrictions. After all, wearing a lot of clothing can see you quickly balloon up. It turns out, though, exceptionally few airlines in the world have an upper limit on how big or heavy a passenger can be. The only real guideline, in America at least, comes from the US Federal Aviation Administration, who state that a passenger must be small enough to be able to lower their armrests and sufficiently buckle and fasten their seatbelts, and that is, of course, for safety reasons. However, that being said, there is no industry-wide policy on either how big seats have to be or what you have to do in the event that a passenger is too big to fit in them. Some airlines make larger passengers purchase an extra seat for the comfort of both themselves and other passengers. Other airlines simply request that such individuals purchase larger seats at the front of the plane if available, and reserve the right to bump such passengers to a later flight if there are none. They also get around potential seatbelt length issues via providing seatbelt extenders. For reference, the average width of a seat on a passenger plane in the United States is about 7 to 19 inches, meaning that as long as you stay within this limit with your many layers of clothing on, there seemingly is not really anything the airline will do to stop you boarding the plane and sitting down. Now let's quickly address the matter of security, because of course you'll have little trouble getting to the boarding gate wearing 5 outfits, but in order to get there, you do have to pass through security. And let's face it, if you're wearing 5 outfits, security are probably going to pay a little bit more attention to you. Then again, as long as you don't do anything to antagonize them and you're willing to be poked and prodded a little more than normal, you're probably going to be okay, at least in the known instances that we found in doing our research. As a potential side benefit of doing this, if you do get a strip search, well, it's going to be a whole lot more funny. It should be noted here that when drawing up your pros and cons list debating wearing several outfits versus paying a baggage fee, it's likely that bringing the bag will win out in many cases. As we hope James McElvar's story proved earlier, wearing many layers of clothing on a cramped, stuffy flight isn't exactly comfortable and can lead to heat stroke. Beyond this, wearing tight or constricting clothing, which many layers of clothing would necessarily be unless your clothing sizes are scaled up appropriately on a plane, is a really bad idea, particularly for long flights, as it dramatically increases the risk of developing deep vein thrombosis, a potentially fatal condition. All that said, there are a handful of airlines in the world where wearing your extra clothing instead of checking it will get you nowhere in terms of cost savings. For instance, Samoa Airlines currently charge via total weight of the passenger plus luggage. The decision to charge heftier customers more money was made both to draw attention to the rising problem of obesity in the Pacific Island nations, where obesity rates are among the highest on Earth, and to make the cost of flights, according to them, fair. Officials note that, under a typical ticketing system, the parents of a little child would normally have to pay just as much for a ticket as a 175-kilogram man, even though the child is cheaper for the airline to transport. But under the new system, the children fly extremely cheaply, and adults who cost the airline more to transport are charged more for this. This system also gets around any luggage issues. As one representative noted to ABC Radio, there are no extra fees in terms of excess baggage or anything, it's just a kilo is a kilo is a kilo. Uzbekistan Airways also operates on a similar system. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and do not forget to subscribe if you haven't already for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, at the beginning I mentioned Picture the Recipe, friends of this channel doing easy to follow recipes. If you'd like to go and check out some of the delicious food that they're making over there, please do head over to Picture the Recipe. There is a link in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.